So yes, as you heard in my intro, I've been on TV a few times. So clearly I'm an authority on everything involving TV. But I've also failed a lot, probably in your eyes. If I told you on paper the things that I've tried to do and the amount of times I've succeeded at getting a TV show on the air versus the amount of times I have not succeeded. But the fact that I even got into the room to pitch is a huge win, and you'll find that out as we go along. So I'm going to start off with just a quick video that I made that pretty much sums up everything we're going to be talking about. So let's take a look. Here we go.
Hi everyone. For today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to sell a TV show in just 3 simple steps.
Okay.
Step 1. Come up with an original idea or recycle an old idea that's been done 1 million times, whatever your personal preference. Step 1A. Tell your agent about the idea. Now, if you're curious how to get an agent, I recommend checking out my other YouTube video entitled How to Get a Hollywood Agent in 600 Easy Steps. So now that you've got your agent, it's time to tell them about your idea. Step 1B. Get feedback from your agent who will change the idea until it is good enough to pitch. To a network? No, not yet. You must first complete Step 1C. Finding a production company. Now you will pitch your idea to various production companies. If one of them likes your idea, you will work with them. Step 1D, prepare the pitch with the production company. They will help you change the idea until it's good enough for pitching. This can take several months to several years because they'll also be insistent on finding a big name director or celebrity to attach. Sometimes big name directors and actors go on long vacations or are shooting a movie in New Zealand, so this can take time. While you're waiting, I recommend taking up a hobby like drinking. Now that a big name is attached, that person will help you change the idea again until it's what they want. Step 1F. It's finally time to pitch the idea to the networks. This process takes only 1 day. Have fun. Step 1G. If you're lucky, a network will tell you they want to buy your idea in the room. Other times, it takes weeks, if not months, to get an answer. Network executives also take long vacations. If you get a yes, now it's time to make your pilot, right? Wrong. A yes is different from an official offer. You must now proceed to Step 1H, waiting for an official offer. This can take several months. Step 1I, negotiating the deal. Once you've gotten the official offer, now you must negotiate the terms. This takes minimum 3 months. Lawyers also like to go on vacation. You must also factor in the holidays, in which Hollywood completely shuts down for 5 months. During negotiations, you will find out how much money you're going to potentially make on this project, even down to how much money you will make on the merchandise in the event that this idea you have goes all the way to be a smash hit and they're printing your face on coffee mugs. You have to work these details out now, which leads us to Step 1J. Spending all that money in your head. It's impossible during this step to not run the numbers and start imagining what you're going to do with all that money. In your head, you're buying a ranch in Montana that you can go to when the Malibu bungalow is getting deep cleaned. This is a mentally healthy activity and will in no way backfire down the line. Now, on to Step 1K. The deal has been signed and now it's time to actually shoot your pilot. Not so fast. Most people must first go through a scripting and development phase, where the network changes your idea several times. This can take up to a year and requires a pilot pickup, meaning the network will decide whether or not the script is worth making into a pilot. If they say yes at this point, congratulations, you've made it to Step 2. Step 2, shoot your pilot. Have fun. Step 2A, submit your finished pilot for consideration to the network. Now you must wait for them to decide if they will order the show to series. And that's just, waiting for 1 or 2 dudes to get back from vacation so they can decide, right? Wrong. Step 2B, focus groups. Many networks don't trust their own instincts, so they'll send out your pilot to be market tested. They'll ask a group of 10 morons in Dallas to watch your wife's work and give their opinion on it. If Bryce doesn't like it, your dream will sadly die. If Bryce loves it, congratulations, you have made it to Step 3. Step 3, making your TV show. This is where it gets really fun. You've gotten a green light and you're actually making your dreams come true. It's time to make your TV show. Step 3A, but first, make sure you incorporate the feedback you received from Bryce. Step 3B, complete production on your TV show. Now everyone will be able to see your idea come to life and you will become a household name. Whoa there, Nellie, not so fast. Before you can do that, you must proceed past step 3C, waiting for the network to decide to actually put your show on the air. Little insider secret. Sometimes networks will spend millions of dollars on a TV show and then just never air it. And you're like, why did that happen? Did somebody in the cast turn out to be a serial rapist? Not necessarily. It could just be that something like, we're going in a different direction, or hi, I'm the new network executive, and because I didn't personally greenlight your show, it makes me feel icky. Go away. I want my own ideas to be on TV. So fingers crossed to make it to step 3D, sitting on your couch in your own living room watching your own TV show with your own 2 eyeballs. Please keep in mind that at any point during this process that I just described, the entire thing could just dissolve with no warning or explanation. It's also important to note that the more famous you are, or the more famous your dad is, the easier it is to get past these steps faster, or even skip over them entirely. I'll talk about that in next week's video, how to be born into a famous career in 7 easy steps. So there you have it, making a TV show in 3 easy steps. Please like and subscribe.
All right. So now that I've crushed you completely, I will build you up again into my own, no. So that was a funny video that I made after I got it wasn't me, it was my husband got some extremely upsetting news, which is his first TV show that he sold with his friend that had made it all the way to the end was not going to air because the network like imploded. And it was really sad and upsetting. Like they would spend all this money, and I'm sure you've read in the news if you follow these things that networks and studios these days will spend millions, hundreds of millions even on a movie or a TV show and then just shelve it because of corporate stuff that I don't understand. Taxes maybe, some Wall Street guy said it was a good idea, whatever. And that can be very upsetting and distressing. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen to you, because for most of you, you won't even get that far. No. But I made that video thinking, I mean, and I literally just, I added in some jokes and stuff, but I really did spell that out. That is really the process that you do have to go through. And I put it out there thinking maybe the video was a little too long, tedious, too inside, nobody would get it. And little did I know, like every single person in Hollywood was sharing it. It got like millions of views, and Judd Apatow was sharing it, Seth Rogen. I'm like, these people are relating to this video. So that made me realize we were all in it together, and it actually ended up being something that really like lifted my spirits in such a moment. And that's kind of my theme of this whole thing is anytime you feel completely beaten down by pursuing a creative career of any kind, just remember you always have what's in you, which is your creativity, your ideas, your artistic expression, and that alone is worth it, no matter who sees it. 1 person or 1 million, that is always worth it. You're at the beginning of your journey. And I will tell you one success story I had. I have sold a TV show all the way to the end and got 2 seasons of it. It was called Nikki and Sara Live. I co-hosted it with Nikki Glazer. She's a little more well-known than me. You might have seen her in the past few years on TV and stuff. But we had a talk show on MTV. I don't know if you're familiar. There was a network called MTV. And we hosted a talk show, and we got to interview celebrities, and it was a very exciting time. I'll just show you a quick clip of, these are bloopers from the show, but it just gives you like an idea of what I used to look like.
Okay. Everyone makes mistakes except for us. No, Sarah, the line is everyone makes mistakes, including us. Of course. So let's take a look at some of our not so proud moments from nearly 2 seasons of Nikki and Sharon.
Jesus, Sarah, it's Nikki and Sarah. Your name is Sarah.
Exactly. Lots of good ideas here, guys.
And
ideas. I'm 90.
It was live, by the way, and we were like fully dropped. Like, there's a reason it didn't last. We were like fully cursing on air all the time.
A rumor spread that Zayn Malik.
Stars of the hit
Anyway, you get the idea. So we had that was back, that was over 10 years ago. It was an amazing experience. It was like my dreams coming true. All I ever dreamed of was to host a talk show, and I actually did it, which at the time did feel incredibly special and surreal and weird. But now, all these years later, I now realize also how unbelievably rare that experience was to go all the way. And the way we got there was one, we had an idea. The first idea Nikki and I had was to host a podcast together. And I don't know if you've heard of podcasts, but we all have 3 of them at least. And we hosted a podcast together, and we kind of started becoming known as like a comedy duo. And one day we just decided, out of rejection from something, everything comes from rejection. Everything I'm doing right now is all seeds back to me being rejected from IT my sophomore year at William & Mary, okay? And the idea comes from those really pure moments, I think, the best ideas do. And me and Nikki, we had just been through a series of rejections, and we decided, you know what, let's just do it ourselves. Let's go out there and try to make our own show. And we decided to try and pitch a talk show based on the kind of buzz we were getting on our podcast. So we had what I guess nowadays a Hollywood person would call IP, intellectual property. We had a project that we did ourselves, DIY, with the tools that we had on our computers, and we started building our own audience that way. That is that is what we are in right now. Creating your own IP out of something and building that, you know. It used to be that you could have just a little bit of success as a stand-up comic, for instance. Like Jerry Seinfeld was getting known as a stand-up comic, went in with his friends and pitched a TV show called Seinfeld. None of the people on that show were famous yet. They were not huge stars. They did not have like a big brand behind them or any other. They just got a sitcom, and that's how it used to be. Now they want you to have something success that you've already built on your own. The good news of that is that you have more control over that of your audience. You're the one that brought the audience in. But the bad news is that the network wants you to do a lot of work up front, which can be very difficult if you don't have the resources and access that maybe a rich kid does. You know what I mean? So there's good and bad to this system that we're in now. So you'll see people, you know, it used to be like if you got one late night set, which is telling joke, I'm like, how do I even explain this? Okay, so comedians used to tell jokes on TV for 5 minutes on a show called The Tonight Show, and then they would get a sitcom. That's literally how it went, you know? Now you have to get 1 million followers on TikTok. I can't tell you how to do that. No one can. So my point is, you're gonna start by building your own ideas, your own audience, even if it's just a small audience in your own little world. And you have that here already. You have a campus, you have a community. I'm sure you have open mics, you have writing groups, you have sketch groups, you have things that you can do to get your ideas out there in the world. The sooner you can start doing that and sharing your ideas and work with other people, the faster you'll get to your dreams, because you need feedback. You need people to hear and see your ideas. Don't hold them all in, share them. Because you want to see what works and what doesn't. So anyway, Nikki and I had this podcast. We decided we wanted to pitch a show. We'd never done that before. We started coming up with the idea, and we knew to pitch it, we were going to have to convince them why us. And one of the things we thought we could do is we need to make a video, because we're just a podcast, we're just audio, and we need to show them what we see us doing on camera. So we made a video, again, these are dated references. It was about Justin Timberlake. And we made a video that we thought, you know, we had this sense like this is a really funny idea, it's a funny execution, and we have a feeling it might go viral. Like maybe it will, who knows? And so we decided to make this video, and we actually timed the release of the video to come out right before we were pitching our show. And because we thought, what if it goes viral? Then it'll be like the hot thing right when we're in the room with the networks. And it was a risk, but we did it, and it did go viral. Justin Timberlake himself tweeted it, and so like the plan just sort of like went the way it was supposed to. We pitched it to a few networks, and then like MTV was sort of interested, but then my friend who worked at MTV wanted to meet with me, and he was lower down, but he was like, I feel like this is the kind of thing they want. So he sort of bumped up the idea up the chain, and it sort of was a swirl of good luck and right moment, right time, right talent, right ideas. And it's not just luck. If the door happens to open for you and you walk through it and you have nothing to offer, then you're not going to the luck isn't going to do anything. So we had a good idea, and we had a great chemistry and a great rapport, and we were both right at the right places in our career up to that point. We both had been doing comedy for 10 years already, and so we came through the door and we were ready for the opportunity when we got it. So we did 2 pilots. They made us reshoot the first one. It took months and months, almost a year from pitch to a year later was when we found out we got the show. That's how long it took just to find out we got it. And then we went into production. We had 2 seasons, which now looking back was forever. It was like we got 1 million episodes compared to what a lot of shows get now. So that's sort of the sum up of like the one success story I had. When that show ended, I moved out to LA thinking, well, it's nowhere up from here, baby. And then I did get a few pilots. I pitched a bunch of shows, and I've never sold a show since then, but I have worked on many other shows and had what I consider to be a successful career. So anyway, your idea. There's 2 ways to start towards a TV show. Does anyone here have an idea for a TV show in your head? You don't have to share it unless you want to. Anyone? Right here in the plaid. Do you have an idea for a show?
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to share it, but is it like a scripted show? Is it a variety? What kind of show is it?
Sci-fi fiction.
Cool, cool. Yeah. So when you're thinking of an idea for a show, some people are going to, is it like a dream idea? Is it the type of show you would want to watch?
Yes.
Yeah. Some people approach it that way, which I think is the best way. Approach it with, what is the kind of show I would want to watch? And try to make that happen. Who knows if you'll ever get there, but it's worth it exploring the opportunities, because the things that you will discover and create along the way to get to that point are worth it. And your ideas are forever. You could have this idea now, go off in a different direction, become a writer for shows, become whatever work you could be doing props on a show, whatever. You still have the idea. And then when the time is right and you actually have the contacts or whatever, you can always go back to that idea and reapproach it. So my point is, a lot of ideas, they're great, and it's your passion, it's what you want to see. It's like, oh, I love this idea. And then there's people who come up with ideas based on what they think would sell. Like the marketability. Like they find out, and I've done this, like I find that the networks put out these sheets. I can't remember what they're called at this point. But it's like their list of what they're looking for. Like right now, we're looking for, and it's always the most ridiculous phrasing. It's like, we're looking for family-based, broad appeal, aspirational, not coastal elite, like they'll say like what they're describing and what they're looking for. We're looking for multi-generational viewing. We're looking for second screen viewing, which is like, I don't even know if you realize what that is. It's like they want to have background TV. It's just TV that you have on in the background while you're doing other stuff. There's so many different things that they're looking for, and I've gotten those lists before and come up with ideas based on that. That is the worst, in my opinion, way to do it, but it also could be the fastest way to success if you hit that right note. What I found is the best is when you get those lists of ideas of what networks are looking for, and you go, oh my God, I have one of my babies, one of my ideas is what they're looking for, and that's the best. So always have your sheet of ideas. I always have a document of ideas for shows. A little paragraph, even if it's just a sentence, one idea I had was a game show where you have to identify the smell. It's called What's That Smell, right? And it's just people smelling a clear box, and they're blindfolded, and they have to look. Times are desperate, all right? But be honest, that's a fun show. I would watch that show. I would win that show, okay? So I just have a document of some are really amazing scripted ideas based on my life story, and then what's that smell? I have an idea for everything, and I keep a document always on hand just in case I hear, Peloton is buying short comedy shows. There's always QVC is buying TV shows now. And you hear it and you go, I have something that would work for that. So sometimes those two align. If you're someone who's just trying to make money, yes, you can try to follow the trends, but my advice is once you see a trend on TV, like, oh, now there's all these shows where they're buying lakefront properties, and which house are they gonna buy? Or now there's all these shows, true crime, whatever. By the time you see the trend, it's too late usually. And that is something that takes a lot of experience in comedy and not comedy, in TV, following kind of the zeitgeist. If you're someone online, you probably, oh, there's a software update. Hold on, let me just do that. No, just kidding. Get that out of there. That's annoying. Okay. So anyway, that's just sort of a summary of like when you're working on ideas. My best advice is just at the place you are now is just to always start with what would you want to watch or make. Maybe you wouldn't even watch it, but you just want to make that show. You want to tell that story, whatever it is. Keep that, work on it, finesse it over years, and maybe the right time will come for you to get it out there in the world. Okay, so that's quick. Components of a pitch. All right. Now look, you can Google all this stuff. You can probably ask ChatGPT. It'll give you a little answer, but I'm better. So when I say components of a pitch, these are the materials you're going to want to start working on. And again, start working on it now, even if it's 10 years from now that you get to show it to somebody like in the biz, right? Don't feel like you're not, oh, I'm not connected enough, I'm not special enough. Just start working on the idea because like I said, the idea is the most precious part of this and you have all the freedom and time in the world to keep working on those ideas. So one of the first and most important things, and by the way, this is not necessarily the order in which you would work on these things. These are just the things you want to start preparing. Sometimes a log line is the last thing that you work on after you've worked on everything else. Log line is a one-sentence description of your show. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of a really good log line. A documentary crew depicts the daily life of a typical office where the workday consists of ego clashes, inappropriate behavior, and mostly tedium. What show? Right. Yes. This is you right before you go into your pitch session. All right. Here's another good one. 6 friends living in New York navigate the personal and professional ups and downs of their 20s and 30s. Friends, obviously. These are the network executives listening to you pitch. And then a high school chemistry teacher diagnosed with inoperable lung cancer turns to manufacturing, selling methamphetamine in order to secure his family's future. Breaking Bad. Yes. And this is your attitude when you go into the pitch room, right? This is when inside, that's how you have to feel. Take no prisoners. Now, these are really obvious, not clever, not trying to be fanciful. These are very simple sentences that describe the show. Now, it's easy to guess them because we've all watched 100 episodes of these shows, so we know. But look at Friends, sorry, I have to go back in time here. 6 friends living in New York navigate the personal and professional ups and downs of their 20s and 30s. That is such a simple line. But it summarizes the show perfectly. And it's what draws in the network executive into going, okay, I get it. For like a non-scripted show, like a talk show. Well, actually, I'll give you an example of one. I pitched a miniature competition show, like people competing, making like dollhouse stuff. It didn't get picked up. We got really close. I'll show you a little bit more of that pitch in a minute. But like the log line was like, 12 skilled miniaturists go head to head in a series of competitions to find out who is the best miniaturist. That's it. It's very simple. Your log line is simple. Okay? So at some point you're going to want to get that log line going. Sometimes that's what starts your idea. You just have the log line and you go from there. Other times you go back in time and you make your log line later. Okay, treatment. This is a several page, could be 10 pages, could be 4 pages depending on the show. This is a late night talk show I pitched with my friend Beth, hosted by all women. Again, did not get picked up. We got close. See, again, I've gotten close. And that to me is a huge win. But anyway, so a treatment is like, it's almost like a report about your show. You have your title, you have your log line, you have what the show is going to be. So it'll include your log line. It'll include a synopsis of the show, like one paragraph describing a little bit more detail than a log line. Where is it set? When is it set? Who are the people involved? What kind of show is it? Characters versus talent. Who are the characters in the show? Your main characters and your secondary characters. If in an ensemble cast, describing that ensemble. What is their relationship to each other and what do they want? And if it's a non-scripted show, the talent. Who is the host? Who are the guests? Who are the contestants? Who are the subjects of this documentary series that you're doing? Whatever it is. Who? Plot and format. So generally, what is the structure of the show? Is this a procedural where every episode they solve a crime, but then you're learning about the characters' relationships at the same time? Is it a format like a game show? You have to lay these things out in your treatment. And this is a document that's kind of becomes your Bible for the show. And it's different than a series Bible. That's a separate conversation, but just in case you know about those things. You're going to talk about who is the audience for this show. It's really good for you to know who the audience for the show is, because then that helps you get in the door at specific networks looking for specific things. So you really need to know, like, is this a show for kids? Is it young adult? Is it old people? Is it women, men, whatever those things are. And in your head, you're probably going to go, well, my show is for everyone, but you need to be honest about, like, what is the demo for this show? Because that's going to really help you get into the door and speak to those customer or those clients that you're going to want to sell it to. And marketability, like, is what trends does it tap into? What is the hot thing that it grabs hold of? What world are you showing people that we haven't seen before, potentially? And then who is the creative team? We'll get into that in a minute. So you've got your creators, you, and maybe someone else if you're working with someone else. Who are the talent that's going to be involved? Who's on camera? Do you have any producers involved? Any directors involved? Things like that. So that's your treatment. Sorry. A pitch deck. So again, these are all just materials you're going to want to start gathering and working on as you approach. Even before you even get in the door to pitch someone, it's just good to go through the practice of creating these materials because it helps you envision the show. If you're just pitching it to the wall and pretending you're pitching, or with a friend or a group of friends, that can get you really comfortable with this process. A pitch deck is basically a PowerPoint of your treatment, but it's very streamlined. I will show you quickly, this was my mini master's pitch. I pitched it with Samantha B. She's like a great funny talk show host, comedian. And we pitched this competition show to all these networks, and we started with a page about why now miniatures are having a huge moment. They're going viral on TikTok, and this is the time for a show like this. And I won't go through all of it, but I used visuals to show, this is the world of the show, and explaining an overall view of the show, the tone of the show, the comps. Comps is what other shows does this show draw from? Because that helps, because network executives, they're so stupid. They can't understand what you're saying. You have to really show them. It's, so we took what elements did we like of other shows? It's the gentle competition of Great British Bake Off. It's the family fun of Lego Masters, the technical artistry of Blown Away. And, so we made sure they understood the tone by showing them what we liked about other shows. Not a copycat, but sort of a mishmash of some of the elements of popular, successful shows. We talked about our contestants. We walked them through the format. And this is what you actually are using as a visual, by the way, while you're pitching, okay? And it gives them something to follow along, like you're doing a presentation. That's just one way of doing it. Some people don't do this. Some people just do a verbal pitch, and that's okay too. And we went into further details. Here are our episodes ideas. Who are the hosts? I mean, look, we were being really ambitious. They're these two would be co-hosts, and I would kind of be the expert on the side helping everyone. And we were like, how great would it be to get a really large man who makes the miniatures look even smaller? Honestly, they were fools to not buy this show. and guest judges, like what is the world of the show, and get them excited. And if, for instance, we pitched this show to Joanna Gaines, the Magnolia Network, and like we made sure she and her talent were featured in the deck, like other talent on the network. We pitched it to Hallmark Network. We put like the talent from that network all through the deck, like made them feel like this goes with what you already have. It could be cross promotion for your other talent. Talked about brand integration, ways to get brands involved in the show, to get the word out, to make money. And then we explained our creative team. So that was basically an example of a pitch deck. And that's why I always say, like, I'm someone who is okay at Keynote and PowerPoint. And I found that that's a really good skill to have in my business, because when I have friends who want to do an idea and they think, maybe Sara, we could bring Sara in, and I'm suddenly the one that's like creating the keynote and the PowerPoint. They're like, thank God you're here, and you make yourself a more valuable part of the team. You'd be surprised at how little it takes to get to be a part of a team just because you know Keynote. Another element would be a video option. So a lot of, like I was saying earlier, a lot of networks now, they can't imagine what you're talking about. So they're like, show us a video. Like, this is what you'll hear a lot. They go out and just film an example, like proof of concept, like show us. And they say that as if you are just someone who has a full production team, like at your beck and call, and that you have like the money to spend. Because they don't mean go out and film it with your phone. They mean do a full production and then come back and pay for that yourself and then come back. Because nowadays, luckily, we do actually have the capability of making a pretty nice looking video with just a phone, or and so they think it's that simple. And sometimes it is, depending on the concept. And sometimes there's no way what you're pitching, you could go like a sci-fi show. Well, like, I'm sorry, I don't have a green screen and I can't, make an alien fly through the sky. I'm not saying that's what your show is, but think about it. So sometimes you shoot, for instance, I pitched a scripted show one time based on a web series that I made. And we cut a sizzle reel of moments from the web series and showed that at the beginning of our pitch. And we show the video and then be like, okay, so that's the IP, and here's what the scripted show would look like. For the miniature show that I pitched with Sam B, we made a video of us talking to camera about what we envisioned as the show, and used some B-roll footage that we found online, just ripped stuff off YouTube of people making miniatures and stuff, and just stole footage, because it's not something that you're gonna make public. We just stole footage from other things and kind of tried to show them what we thought it would look like. And so that was a cheap way of making kind of a sizzle reel without having to shoot anything except ourselves talking to camera. So sometimes a video is part of your pitch. Now, quick side note, because I know most people are very interested in scripted shows. For a scripted show pitch, I've only done it a couple times, but I've been privy to a lot of it. A lot of my friends and family have done this, and one of my really good friends is a successful showrunner, and this is her, so this is very special that I'm sharing this with you, so you're gonna wanna write it down if you're really serious about this. So this is what she always makes the structure of all her scripted show pitches, and she does it all verbally, unless there is some IP that it's based on a real person that they have some pictures they want to show or a video they want to show. But this is how she structures her pitches, and she said she has basically a 99% success rate with it. So I would say definitely follow this. So the why me? Why am I the one that should write this show? And you have to come out the gate the most confident, almost like you're delusional, you really do have to go into a pitch I was born for this, it is I am the danger. You do have to come in with that attitude. So why am I the one that should write this show? Oh, it's because it's my story. I grew up in this story. It's my life story. So that's a good example. Or I am writing this show because I'm an experienced writer and showrunner, and I partnered with this person who wrote a book, and I bought the rights to her life story. Or whatever the why me of it is. With Nikki and I, our why me was, we are new, at the time podcasts were just kind of getting to be a thing, and we were we have conquered this new medium. we're young and hot ish. And we have a real good sense of pop culture, aka that viral video with Justin Timberlake. And that's the kind of thing that MTV wanted at the time, was someone to make comments about pop culture, especially music, and bring their talent in and do all that. So start with your why me. The about and why now. So what is the show about? And why is that something we want to hear now? An example would be, I had worked on a scripted idea for a while about a woman who had accused like a powerful man of sexual harassment or something, and those stories always blow up in the news, but we never find out about her life after. And I called the show Fallout, and without getting into all the details because it's too boring, but the why now was that. It was like all these stories make the news, but we never really find out what their life is like after. What is that like? How do they rebuild? How do they get their reputation back? How do they navigate this new life being known as that woman who did that, World and tone. So like, where is the show? When is the show? What is the tone of the show? Is it a dramedy? Is it a slapstick comedy? Is it dark, tense suspense? All those things. Know the tone. And that might seem, like I keep going to you, sorry. Like a sci-fi show, there's a lot of different tones of sci-fi. There's the more campy stuff, and then there's the much more like gritty, apocalyptic, so know your tone, okay? Teaser, then and by the way, when she does this, she says all of this should take 20 minutes tops. That is a very, very good rule for pitching a show. It should not take more than 20 minutes. All in. All the things I'm telling you, that's why you have to kind of like really come in ready, which I'll get to in a minute. So your teaser is a sort of drill down into the specifics. So you're going to go into this pitch already knowing how your show begins. Okay, so let's say you're pitching just a pilot. Okay, that's usually in the scripted world. You're going into a network with your idea. You may have even already written the script, but you don't tell them because you want them to pay you to write the script. It's good to write the script because then you kind of know the show really well. But also you can wait and see if it sells and see if someone will pay you to write it. But the way it works is you pitch the show. Typically, there are exceptions, of course. Pitch the show verbally. They buy the pilot script from you. You write the script. Then they decide, just like in my video, then they decide, are we going to produce the pilot? Are we going to film it? Now, sometimes they will go straight to series based on just your script, okay? Sometimes you shoot the pilot and then they decide. There's different ways that it goes. So this teaser is you going in and describing like the very beginning of the show, like detailed. Like, we open on a suburban lane. Butterflies are flying. Like you give them like a visual of the very opening of your show. And that gets them drawn in and go, oh, we're in the action, or I can see what's happening. That was really funny, or that was really grabbed me in some way. So you give them a little teaser. This is like a 1 or 2 paragraph kind of description of what we're seeing when the show opens. Then you're going to describe the pilot, plot, and characters. That's kind of the meat of the pitch. You really need to know your characters. That's what this treatment is for. You go through each character and break down like who they are, what is it they want, what is their why. And that's a thing you'll hear from network executives a lot. Why are we here? What is our why? Like what is the why? Like I just wrote on a pilot for NBC for a celebrity spelling bee. That's secret amongst us, okay? That's not public information. I know how you all are. You're gonna go on Twitter and you're gonna spill the beans about this really hot property, celebrity spelling bee. But literally on celebrity spelling bee, the notes from the network were like, why are we here? We're missing that from the script. Why these two hosts? What is their relationship? Like, they care so much about this stuff. And you would think, even on a show as silly and fluffy as Celebrity Spelling Bee, that stuff doesn't matter. It matters. We had built a whole relationship between the host and like the word judge, pronouncer person, like a whole fake like life for them that would fill the like kind of the undertone of every little interaction they had. So that's why it's important to really know your characters, okay? Even if you never share this stuff in the pitch, you know it, and it informs everything you say. And then the series. You should have an overarching view of where does the show go. So for instance, if you were pitching a show like Succession, you probably, for the pitch, even if it ends up not being that, you should know who gets to take Logan Roy's company at the end. You should know that answer. You should know where the show goes. Because after you pitch all this, they're going to start asking you questions. And you need to be ready to answer any of them, as if you have an entire world in your head. Now all that's going to change probably if you sell the show. But you should know, what is your vision for that, okay? And then wrap it up, you know? Do your little song and dance. When you pitch, even if you're never someone who's ever performed, never been on stage before, never done public speaking, pitching is all of that. So if you're nervous in front of people and this is something you want to be doing in your life, I recommend taking an improv class, doing something to get comfortable with talking in front of people, being in the moment, being able to adjust. Like when I got here today, there was some other thing going on and you saw we couldn't set up in time, and then I had to restart my fucking computer. And you know, I could have panicked and started crying and left, you know, which is what I would have done 24 years ago at William & Mary, you know. But after 20 plus years of doing comedy, like I know just how to roll with it and to stay calm. Those are the types of things, if you're not comfortable with public speaking, pitching is that. And it's you selling yourself sometimes to people who are completely, almost cruelly dead-faced. Like my worst pitch I've ever done, I'll never forget it, was at Netflix. The first time I ever pitched there, I was really nervous because it was like when Netflix was like so hot, like you had to get in with them. And I'm pitching this show and we go in, and it's never a good sign when it's just one person in the pitch room. I mean, it doesn't mean either or anything, but it's usually better if we're bringing in everybody. The whole team is here. We want to hear your pitch. That feels more important than one lady or man coming in. And this woman comes in, it's me and my manager, and I'm ready to pitch. We have the video, I'm like all ready to do my little song and dance. And because it really is like a performance, like you after you're done with a pitch, you're like exhausted, and you're like, I need an after party for this, you know. So I'm in there, and the woman, I start pitching, and the woman just starts on her phone. She's just like this, and I'm like, okay, just keep going, you know. Maybe she's just has to send a text, and there's a babysitter issue or something. I don't know. So I just keep going, pretending it's like reminding me of bombing at a comedy show. Like, just keep going. And then it doesn't stop. And my manager, she just put her hand on me and she just went, stop. And she was like, hey, do you need to step out for a second and deal with that? And it's good to have somebody in the room who can kind of protect you in that way. And I was like, and she was like, oh, sorry, I have to put out a fire. Hang on. I'll be right back. So she leaves for like 10 minutes, and then she comes back and she goes, okay, continue. And she like puts her phone down, and I just had to finish the pitch. It was so rude. Like, that is so unacceptable and unbelievably like rude and unprofessional. And then at the end, she was just like, it's a very sweet pitch. And I was just like, what a waste of time. I had to drive through LA traffic for this. Fuck you. So anyway, you need to be ready. Like, that's a bad example, but a lot of times they will be dead-faced. They'll just be like, the whole time. They won't give you a laugh. That doesn't mean they don't like it. You never know. So you have to pretend in your head, again, you gotta be delusional the whole time that you're killing to like Madison Square Garden. And just because you don't know, they might be loving you. There's faces in this room right now, and in my head I'm going, that person hates my guts. Yeah. They want me to die. They don't understand, you know, but in their head they could be like, I love you so much, you know. I've just learned after years of doing stand-up, you don't know. So you have to be not distracted by that stuff. So those are just some quick points about performance. Which brings me to pitch practice. You should always practice your pitch with your team of people that you have. And I know that I'm talking about scenarios that are going to take you a long time to get to, right? But there's examples of where you might be pitching yourself. These are actually good tips, honestly, for any job interview or whatever. Practice it. have a sample audience there for you. Get over those nervous jitters. Work out who's going to say what. Every pitch I've ever done, we've practiced it multiple times. And you have to know, this person's going to introduce me, then I'm going to introduce you. Then I'm going to take this, and you're going to come in here. And that really makes a huge difference in how it flows, and it keeps it to that 20 minutes. Okay, now this is the question that everyone that might be on the top of your head, which is, this is all great, Sara, but how the hell do I get to that point? And I guess my summary for that is what I was saying earlier, which is start creating now. If you haven't already, create something, whatever it is you're interested in. Write things, shoot little sketches online, just to see what works and what doesn't for you. What do you have to express, and get it out there in the world. Try a million different things. When I graduated from college, I didn't even know what I wanted to do yet. And it took me a year to kind of zone in on comedy and go for it. And then after that, 10 years later, I had a show. That's actually a really quick turnaround. Although these days with TikTok and things like that, you can have kind of meteoric rises that are possible. They're just very rare. But the nitty-gritty of it is inching your way forward in the business. So who here is like planning on like moving to New York or LA like right after college, and like, do you have a plan? What is your idea?
I have a couple film scripts that I'm writing right now.
Excellent.
So hopefully I'll work on those.
Yeah.
I've gotten advice to like work on PA jobs, start
Yes.
building my reputation and network, and then start going for bigger opportunities.
Yeah.
after that.
Getting into a production of any kind, like being part of a show, part of a film set, part of a crew, getting those jobs, PA jobs are a great way, production assistant, great ways to get started and to learn how a show is made, how a film is made, is a great advice. You can also try to get jobs on the like agency manager side, production company side, working in an office environment. The danger with any of these is getting stuck in a lane. And so just make sure on your own, you're also making your own stuff. Like I said, always be making your own stuff. I always say I have a money-making lane, a survival lane, and I have my creative lane, my art lane of like where I'm doing and I'm free and I'm not having to listen to network notes or following market trends or like desperate for validation. I'm just freely creating. And then I have my lane of I've got to do this to survive. I've got to make money, day job, whatever that is. I chose the path of like working in a regular law firm as like a lackey for a long time, while at night I was doing comedy and stuff. So looking back, probably would have learned a lot quicker if I had gotten a PA job, but I also got a lot of life experience that helped me as a stand-up comic. So those are great pieces of advice. So you're working your way forward in the business, you're making contacts. You are making your own stuff. At some point, if you've made enough of your own stuff, whatever that is it writing, is it producing your own films? A short film is a really great goal, especially for even TV, but film or TV. Shooting a short film, a 5-minute, as good as you can make it, film from start to finish, tell a story, is a great sample of your work. So again, just getting your work out there, making samples, going into festivals, going to a city like New York or LA, finding the other people your level and becoming friends with them. Because all the people I started with are now like they ran The Daily Show. They're like the head writer of, like these are the people you start with are gonna go and all ships rise together. I don't know if you've heard that phrase that I just butchered. So I know I'm throwing a lot of different things at you at once, but all these sort of things rise. It's not one thing. Anyone who tells you like there's one path to success and you have to do it this way, don't trust them. They're probably a member of a cult. Don't do that. There's a million different ways to get to where you want to be, and you can find those stories spread across podcasts and books and interviews of creative people. Just keep trying and keep going. At some point, you will get to the point where you get the attention of agents and managers. A lot of people go, how do I get an agent? That's like the most important thing. I got to get that because that's who gets you in the door. And people told me this and I didn't believe them, but it ended up being true. They will come to you when the time is right. But that just means you need to make yourself seen, present, where the world you want to be in, just get in there. I mean, like, I know that sounds so vague, but it really is that attitude of like, let me in. You have to, like, every little thing, opportunity you see, if you wanted to be a poet, like, there's a poetry reading. I'm going to the poetry reading. Like, it's what you breathe. And when you wake up in the morning, it's what you're thinking about when you go to bed at night. But then try to have a life too. Anyway, you'll figure it out. So when you get an agent and you have an idea for a show, usually that person will help you set up meetings with production companies and get these contacts going and get the meetings going, and then that sort of the ball rolls that way. You can also get to pitch a show without having representation because you are friends with the person who is like part of the pitch team. Like, you have a collaborative relationship with an actor that you've written a project for, potentially, and the two of you go in and pitch. It's all about like attaching talent and things. There's other ways to build a team to get into a pitch room. So if you go all the way through the pitch process, you get there, you get through the door, and you're pitching the show, what's next? Well, like my video pretty much sums it up, which is you have to wait, and you wait to find out. Sometimes they'll say no to you right away. Other times they'll go, well, we're really talking, we have to wait for the meeting with the boss above us, and then that's in 2 weeks, and then they're on vacation. Like, it really can get delayed. It's very excruciating. Waiting for information, waiting for the no. A lot of times silence is no in Hollywood, which is cruel because there is no definitive no. You just, after a while, go, I guess it was a no. And that's always been something that really frustrated me, but it is the way it is. One thing is you get the sense, sometimes I've gone through the pitch process and gone, wow, we're selling this thing. There was a lot of enthusiasm in the room. There was a lot of positive talk. There's a lot of you'll hear from us soon. And then it doesn't end up going. And it's very frustrating, but a lot of times it's just bad luck. Like, we almost sold the miniature show, and then the guy who was the champion of the project left the company for another job somewhere else, and then the project died. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong. You just have to remember 99.999% of the time, no in Hollywood is not personal. It literally has nothing to do with your value as a person, the value of your ideas. That miniature show that we almost sold to Joanna Gaines at Magnolia Network, it didn't go forward, and we were bummed. But then a year later, they announced their slate of like new shows, and one of them, I kid you not, you can watch it sometime soon on Magnolia Network. It's called Hamsters versus Humans. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's humans competing with hamsters in various challenges. I don't know what the hell that is. And Sam's first response was, so many hamsters are gonna die during the production of that show, because like a hamster dies if you look at it for too long. Like, it just So anyway, you have to laugh because it's just so, makes no sense. There's no rhyme or reason, and you have to, that's why I always say I stay grounded by always making my own things, always having my own creative projects going on, and my friends and my family and the people who are in the business with me, who are going through those similar experiences. That is what keeps you going. Okay, so now let's go through my computer now. Okay, like, we don't need to look at that. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. What time do we have here? What time is it? I can't see.
2:11.
Okay. I know people have to go, but if you want to stick around and talk and ask me any question you have about everything I just threw at you, I'm happy to talk. So, but if you have to go, I understand. I've had a wonderful time explaining these things to you. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Well, you talked about your worst pitching experience, but what was the best?
Well, the best is when they buy the stuff. Oh, I gotta put it back on. Okay, she's got the microphone, guys. It's called production. The best pitching experience I had, it's funny. It's funny you asked that because the pitch for Nikki and Sara was actually kind of basic. It was just me and Nikki in a room with a lady. Like, I remember I said, like, if it's just one person, watch out. Well, that was when we sold the show. Was that an exact example? And so my own advice did not go the way I thought it would. But the people the pitches that are the best is when it's like a big group of people and you've got your team and they're laughing. It's almost like a good stand-up show. It's like you crushed, you killed, you know? So, yeah, that was a good example.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I noticed there's a lot of downtime. You mentioned this a lot. Like,
Yeah.
what did you do for like making ends meet like during this?
Right. So he was asking, or they were asking about downtime in between all these waiting periods, and that's why when I was talking about like your money-making lane, it's important to have a way to support yourself. And it's unfortunate because you realize when you get into this business, like, oh, there's some people who just have a lot of money from their parents and can just sort of float by in these long waiting periods. But for the rest of us, we do have to find a way to make a living. Some people choose the route of like waiting tables, like your basic kind of flexible service industry jobs, and that works well because if you can tolerate that kind of work, I'm like should not be interacting with the public, like with food and drinks involved. Like it's not for me. But I have a lot of friends who were like able to support themselves that way. But I got a day job, and then I was a good writer, and so I would do like freelance. Like I wrote speeches for rich people in New York. I wrote poems for I just would stumble into these jobs by honestly it was by putting my work out there, then people would come to me. Like lately I've been really getting into miniatures, as you can tell, and I've started getting people approaching me to make miniatures like for money, and I've been doing some sets for different like productions where there's a whole world of people making miniature fabrications for sets, and I've started getting into that world, and I'm making money that way. And so I think it is like you need to have a plan for how you're going to survive, because I know people who had to give up their dreams because they couldn't survive in these more expensive cities. And I myself, like Hollywood, I'll just say, like Hollywood is really fucked up right now. It will rise again and start moving again in ways we can't predict, and new creative things will always come, and there will be money to be made. But what led to the strike, and then the strike itself and everything kind of has created this shrinkage, and like there's not a lot of work right now, and a lot of people I know who are like really successful are like, I'm gonna have to work at a coffee shop. Like it's really bleak. And like I myself, I'm gonna live, I'm like been on tour and stuff, and so my husband and I were like, let's just stop paying rent in LA. It's way too expensive. And so we're kind of probably gonna live in Virginia for a little while. And the great thing is, one of the silver linings of a global pandemic that is still going on is that now there's way more willingness to have people work remotely for at least part of a show. And then like I've written on shows where we were meeting online, like remote, for the first month or two of a short-term job, and then just had to all be present for 2 or 3 weeks. So a lot of people aren't living in these more expensive places anymore. So it's actually, there's more flexibility than there was when I started out. When I started out, you had to live where the stuff was happening, and there was no other option. Now you can be more flexible, and there is a way to try to survive while pursuing a creative career. So I hope that answered your question. Not very well though, probably. You have a question?
Yeah, so I was wondering, so you talked about, like for Mini Masters, you had pitched like Shaquille O'Neal as a potential host, and you also talked about like giving an overview of where a series might go, even if you don't know it's going to go there. So how do you strike the right balance with a pitch between like including things that are definite, like you can guarantee, as well as like things that are speculative and like that you are hoping for, but you don't want to like overpromise?
Right. So I think you just be clear. Like, so for instance, I know people who have scripted shows that they've pitched where a person is attached. Like they have already agreed, probably in written form. They have some sort of basic contract where it's like, or they're pitching it with you as a producer as well. So like, oh, my friend just pitched a show with Allison Janney, very funny actress, and she was attached to star in it, and so they developed it around her and worked together. So and Allison was actually at the pitch. So that's like, okay, she's definitely part of this. Then there's like, oh, we have interest. This person has said they're interested. That doesn't mean they're going to do it, but we have this person interested. So you just clear in the pitch. Like when we said Shaq, we were like, we don't know him, but we were like, him or someone like him is who we envision to play this role, or to, so that's I wouldn't write those things in your, like document treatment, but you can say like, think, that's what people do. Right. They write a little, Barbara is blah, blah, blah. Think Betty White, or like whatever. By the way, I should have mentioned this before all the people left, which is a really important thing, is don't leave any paper documents with the people when you pitch. You do not give them any of your material. Only if they request afterwards, and that should be submitted through email or agents, through official channels that are records, because I know too many people, and this is just sort of a standard practice nowadays, which is to make sure you do not leave them with physical paper documents in a pitch meeting, or send it to them without it being official, okay? Because they are known to steal ideas. And you go in, you pitch it, and they go, oh, thank you, but we already have something like that. And they just take it from you. And that's one thing that's really tough, because proving idea theft in Hollywood is virtually impossible. Like, it's really, really tough to prove. Like, you need to have a video of them going, I like this idea written by Sara Schaefer, I'm going to copy. It's so hard to prove like idea theft or plagiarism, so, in Hollywood. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So you talked about kind of preparing yourself for the perfect opportunity to open up.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the point for you when you went from doing stand-up to pitching a show?
Well, that moment with Nikki was very it was sort of a conglomeration of things, but I had been working at Late Night with Jimmy Fallon as running all their digital stuff, and I had a successful run there, but it was just a really tough place to work. I don't know if you've read the articles about it. It's a tough place to work, and I was feeling just really stifled by it, and felt like they weren't ever going to promote me to writer, that I was being held back there, and I wasn't making very much money. So I got a job. I got an agent who met me through, I was starting to get attention for my stand-up comedy, little things here and there. I'd just been hustling on my own shows, promoting myself like crazy, and I'd gotten a little of attention, and I won an Emmy at Fallon, and I was starting to get I was like a comic to watch, and those kinds of things, and getting attention as a stand-up. And so an agent approached me, and a manager approached me, and then the agent came to me and was like, hey, which, by the way, this is rare. Agents almost never get you any work. Manager, it's you're gonna have, if they get 10%, think about that. You're doing 90% of the work. And they honestly shouldn't even get 10. So I don't know why we're in this system, but we are. But when they're there for you in the clutch, my manager touching my arm and being like, stop. Are you gonna get off your fucking phone? You bitch? It's good to have your fight team for you in those moments. But so agent came to me and she said, there's an opening to be a writer at Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the game show. And I was like, that is beneath me. In my mind, I'm like, that's a game show. It's like a daytime game show. Why would I want to write on that? It's like writing for Family Feud. Why would I do that? I'm a late night writer. I'm a comedy writer. And I was all high on my horse. She goes, it's actually a really good job. And a lot of comedy writers came from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire when they started out, and it gets you into the union, into the Writers Guild. And I was like, okay. So I put together a packet. I ended up getting the job. I was able to leave Fallon for what felt like more of a lateral move as opposed to up, but it was I finally got my first TV writing credit. And 8 months later, I had a pilot at MTV, because it also freed me up mentally to start working on other ideas of my own. I had more time, I wasn't so stressed, and it ended up being an amazing choice that brought me to that point. And so yeah, that's kind of how it came together. And it was also the early days of Twitter, and it was a free-for-all of making a name for yourself in different ways than were the traditional route. So a lot of things combined to have that moment happen. Yes.
What makes you love writing and creating TV shows?
Well, I hadn't done one in a while because of what I was describing the industry right now. And I just worked on that Celebrity Spelling Bee, and I was like, God, I'm back in it, and I love it. Like, I think, I was just telling this to someone, like, growing up, when I would go see like a play or a concert or anything, live performance, all I could, I'm uncomfortable in the audience, even if I'm enjoying the show, because all I can think is, I want to be on the other side. Not necessarily on stage. I want to be back there. What are they doing? I'm always thinking, like, what are they doing backstage? Like, I want to pull the curtain. Like, I don't care what it is. I want to be a part of making it, the show. And so I think I love collaboration, and because TV and movies are extremely collaborative. And honestly, the worst people I've worked with are people who don't understand that, and they don't respect, like, the person, the PA, all the way up to the executive at the network. To me, in fact, the executive of the network is the least creative, the least collaborative, the least, like, special person on the production, and it's the people who are putting it all together who are, to me, like. And so when we got Nikki and Sara, I had been bottom of the totem pole, and now I was at the top, and I got to experience the full range of that, and it was very important to me and to us to make a show that felt like we valued every person, and that we saw a PA as just as creative as a writer, even though given the business, they aren't being paid the same, but like, your ideas are valuable, and a prop guy making a prop just a little bit funnier than what we had originally written was so valuable. It made the show so much funnier. And when you see a show that's really good, that's because every single person on that show is usually bringing their best to the table, whether they're being recognized for that behind the scenes. There's a book called, oh God, I'll remember it. I think it's called like Burn It Down, but it's like about Hollywood, the toxicity behind the scenes on set and stuff, and how everyone's trying to move away from that, and it's just not sustainable. Anyway, you're welcome. Yes?
So you're talking about like when a pitch is not successful,
Mm-hmm.
and like that like project kind of dies a little bit. Are you ever able to like pitch it again a little bit later, or is it
Yeah,
kind of
so it depends on the pitch and the people involved, but like the Mini Masters idea, we got so close at Joanna Gaines' company, and we really thought that because when they come back to you and they go, can you tweak the video? Can you make the pitch deck more like this? When they start tweaking your thing and saying, that means they're showing it to the top person, and they want to get a yes for you. And there's other signs. So we really thought it might happen, and then of course it didn't. But we were like, okay, it's done. But then literally almost a year later, they were like, hey, so Sam B's producing partner, she's like, I just had a meeting with Hallmark Channel, and they really want to do something with Sam, and I floated the idea to them, and they want to hear the pitch. So we went through that whole thing again a year later, and again, it got close, and then they didn't pick it up. But yes, an idea can come back if the time is right. Sometimes you lose the talent that you had attached, or you're off doing something else, so it's hard to get something going again. But if it's just your idea and maybe you've hit a wall and you haven't really gone all the way, you always have that idea you can go back to. And I found, okay, so there's this thing in Hollywood called general meetings. They were invented by Satan. You go and it's like a planned networking thing. So like you have a meeting with a production company usually. Sometimes it's a casting agent, sometimes it's a network executive, and you meet. And you go and you talk, and they go, okay, tell us about yourself. And you go, blah, 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 and I'm this. Usually they go, we're working on this, we're looking for this. And then you talk about what you have, and you maybe float some ideas. Oh, I'm working on like a little, like you listen to what they're looking for, and you go, oh, in my bag of tricks, I have this, this, and this. It's just sort of like a meet and greet, a get to know you. 99% of the time, you will never see that person again, and you just drove 90 minutes to Santa Monica for no reason. Nowadays, thank God, general meetings are over Zoom. Again, silver lining. Sure, millions of people died, but now we don't have to drive to a general meeting. It was worth it. That was a really dark joke. I'm sorry. Yeah, so you do these general meetings, you meet and greet, and the reason I brought it up is because a lot of times the thing you had at the bottom of the pile, like, what's that smell? You just throw it in at the end and they go, wait, what was that idea? You just spent 5 minutes explaining your dream project, and then you just, and I've got this and this, and they go, wait, what's that? And you go, oh, it's just this dumb idea I have. And they go, tell us a little bit more. That actually sounds pretty good. And then they're like, follow up with us. Send us let's set something up. Or like, when you get that ready to pitch, come back to us. So it'll be that kind of thing. So that's why I always say I have a list of documents ready to go. Even if it's an old idea that didn't sell, you could kind of maybe try to revive it. Because again, trends come back around, things come back around. With the miniature thing, I honestly think we were too early. Like, if we pitched it now, we might get it, but it's like a little, like maybe the ship has sailed, but yeah. So the worst is when you go and you do all that, you pitch, everyone says no, and then a year later someone else sells the same idea because the timing is better. Cruel. Okay, anyone else? Yes?
You said you were worried about plagiarism. Do you have them sign a non-disclosure agreement when you pitch?
No. It's honor code, and like legally they're not allowed to do that, but I think it's one of those things that, I think if they're going to steal something from you, what they do usually is just lift it, part of it, or some of it, and then give it to somebody else. Or a lot of times I think plagiarism is unintentional. As a comedian, I'm very familiar with this. I've been on stage before and said a joke and then like a minute later, like off the cuff, I'll just say something and I'll go, that wasn't my idea. Like, I heard someone else say that, but it just came out. And then I have to like remind myself, like, okay, don't ever say that again. Or I call the friend. I go, hey, I accidentally said this thing that I know was a line you said. I just want you to know, like, I remembered and I won't do it again if anyone saw that. And there's parallel thought. There's so many defenses that they can go, well, it's parallel thought. We came up with it at the same time you did. It's not that special. Ours is different, slightly different, so it's really hard to prove. I've had instances where I'm like, wow, that is a straight up ripoff of something I've done. And in the end, especially if you're the lesser powerful entity and you're up against a more powerful entity, it's really hard. I mean, you see lawsuits go around every once in a while, and usually the person filing the lawsuit is like kind of considered insane or maybe crazy. Like, and maybe that's part of their thing where, they go. But yeah, every friend I've had that has something like that, if they go and consult a lawyer or, the lawyer's like, you're just not going to win. You literally have to have such concrete proof that they stole it intentionally. So it's tough. Plagiarism is easier because it's like text from a book. I mean, meaning writing. But like ideas are really hard to, But if it's based on IP that's your IP, it might be easier to prove. I'm sure there are examples, but yeah.